Going to start. Okay. Welcome everyone. Nice to see everybody. Okay, we're going to start with 2 halachas of Lashon Hara and then a halacha of loving kindness, Be'ezrat Hashem. And the schut of all that we learned should stand as a refuah shlema for all cholei amecha Bet Yisrael, amongst them Chaya bat Beya and Chagit Renana bat Sarah. Amen. I think I did this one last week. Okay. Do not bear a sin because of him. This verse teaches us that even when rebuking another for his sins, we must not embarrass him. If a person embarrasses another and causes him to blush, he violates this prohibition. If he does so in public, he forfeits his portion in the world to come. Number 2, do not afflict a widow or orphan. If a person speaks even truthful lashon hara or chilut against a widow or orphan in his presence, thereby hurting his feelings, he transgresses this prohibition. His punishment is explicit in the Torah, my anger will flare and I will kill you. Rashi seems to imply that this prohibition applies not only to widows and orphans, but also to any unfortunate person. If widows or orphans are insulted to their face and one does not object, he will also be punished. Okay. Next. Okay. If one earns $1 and spends it, the dollar is gone. Even $1 million accumulated over a lifetime can disappear in a few fleeting moments. For almost anyone...
Try me. Sorry, it was too good of a line.
I agree with you. Yeah, that's that inner voice. For almost anything one earns in this world is consumed eventually. There is, however, an exception to this rule. The reward for certain mitzvahs can be dispersed again and again, yet remain completely undiminished, both in this world and in the world to come. Chesed is such a mitzvah. According to the Jerusalem Talmud, an act of chesed stands as a credit forever, reaping even greater rewards than simple charitable giving. The merit of the charity one gives accrues to his children and his children's children, 3 generations. The merit of an act of chesed has no statute of limitations. The rewards one receives for it in this world are considered dividends. They can be enjoyed throughout a lifetime without diminishing in any way the principle, which is the reward awaiting in the world to come. An act of chesed is also an impenetrable, that's it, shield against troubles. It renders protection that even the learning of Torah cannot match. The ultimate protective power against troubles in this world and the next, says the Chafetz Chaim, comes from the combination of Torah learning and chesed. A person with this dual merit claims the rewards of both Yisachar and Yosef. His learning earns him Yisachar's deep level of understanding and wisdom, and his chesed earns him the complete protection from harm that was granted to Yosef, whose enemies fell before him. Zat Hashem. We should all do chesed with one another. Okay. Parshat Shelach Lecha, a glimpse into the promised land. Today, some people who are in Chutz La'aretz may not appreciate everything I have to say. Very interesting, because in preparation to coming to my tour next month, the book tour, in the beginning I was like, okay, I'm going to keep it very simple, just talk about Emuna, and it's very touchy subject to talk about living in Eretz Yisrael for people who live in Chutz La'aretz, how do you approach it and such. But I feel very strongly that this time around, I feel like urgency is of the calling, and that we need to all really speak to those loved ones that are in Chutz La'aretz, and in a nice, what comes from the heart, right, goes into the heart. As Let Hashem try to explain to them the urgency of the times, that it's really time to highly consider. And what I say, just as a preface to the shiur, it's not easy to come here. It's not easy to live here. It's not easy to come here. But with all that, I always say one thing. One thing no one will ever try to bite you on if you say to them. It's a matter of want to be here. It's not easy for everyone to take the step, but at least every day, even us who live here in Eretz Yisrael, we should be looking at the picture of the Kotel or the Beis Hamikdash, and we should want to have that place of Geula. We should yearn for that place of Geula. That is what Hashem wants from us. Even if we can't, those in Chutz La'aretz who can't make it here, but at least to want. And if I don't want, then at least say to Hashem, please, something's not aligned in me, because every Jew should want to live in Eretz Yisrael. Every Jew should want to have a yearning to go to the Kotel and to visit the tzaddikim, here. And if we don't, that means there's something inside of us that's not aligned. And Eretz Yisrael, which we're going to talk about today, not just the physical Eretz Yisrael, but the spiritual Yerushalayim, the spiritual idea of the Promised Land, is the place of total alignment. It's a total alignment of soul, of emotion, of body. Everything is aligned. So it describes, how is Eretz Yisrael described? A land that flows with milk and honey, right? And so the question is, a place, look at it, it's a place that flows. And so that already gives us a hint of what it means to live here. You have to be flowing. You have to be flexible. You have to understand that it's not you that's running the show. One of the main things that's very difficult for us when we live here in Eretz Yisrael is that idea that we feel like we're not in control, more so than in any other place. The government is very much on our backs. A lot of people will say, you can get away with a lot of stuff in America. It's a big country. You don't, you're not always subjective to, being caught, so to speak. Here, it's a small country. Everyone's eyes are on everyone. You feel like you just have to constantly be in Hashem's hands. You have to know that Hashem is guiding us. And it's not an easy thing to live here, in the fact that you know that things don't come easy. But you have to be going. As they say, Emuna is about being flexible enough to change your plans. In other words, you make plans. We're just talking about this on the where I'm planning here to go to America next month and so. Do I know? I don't really know. Look what's looming over the fore. It's so funny. I was speaking to people just a few weeks ago saying, I don't know, should I go, should I not go? There might be a war here, and everyone's, at the time there was nothing talking about it. No, there's no talk about it. What are you getting all hyper and all paranoid? I'm like, something tells me something's going on this summer. And sure enough, now everyone's, saying to me, are you sure you really want to go? Are you because you don't know. But you have to be willing to change your plans, to adopt yourself to Hashem's will and Hashem's ultimate plan. And that's one of the things that we find here in Eretz Yisrael. And because we are creatures of control, and we like to know what's going to be planned, and we like to know that we have control over that which occurs with us, that's a very difficult thing. That's one of the things that we find over here, that we have to be willing to align ourselves with the flow of Hashem. How do we enter to Eretz Yisrael? Entering Eretz Yisrael can only come after going through a place of wilderness, after going through the desert in us. We cannot go straight from Egypt, from a place of Gashmiut, right? When you make Aliyah, you can't just go from a place of Gashmiut straight into Eretz Yisrael. There's got to be a mental, spiritual transition. And that is what is demanded of us, is the preparation. We have to prepare ourselves to live in Eretz Yisrael. We have to prepare ourselves to accustom ourselves to what is going to be awaiting for us when we get to the Promised Land. But again, when I'm talking about Eretz Yisrael, let's just understand and make it clear that what I mean is it's a state of consciousness. We're going to talk about this. What is the Promised Land? So even if I'm living here in Eretz Yisrael, I could still live in total galut. Again, here it's going to be harder for me. I'm going to have more opposing forces to me, because the land itself is so holy that it's not really it's going to throw me up per se. It's not going to really allow, which is again one of the reasons why it's so hard to live here, because you can't get away with living with sheker here, not as well as you could do it with anywhere else. Here you're in the backyard of Hashem. Certain things that a person is willing to, let's say, see someone litter on the sidewalk, but you come into my house and start littering, That's sort of like what Eretz Yisrael is. Hashem is saying, listen, you're in Chutz La'aretz, I'm not really directly involved. There's 70, ministers, and they're really part of the ones in charge, so I don't really see, so to speak, everything. So there's certain things that could be overseen, and you won't be opposed to that. You won't get this opposition so quickly. But here, in Eretz Yisrael, in the Promised Land, you want to live in a state of closeness to Hashem. He's not going to accept certain things. So there's going to be a very heavy opposition to when we're not aligning ourselves correctly to the spiritual makeup of Eretz Yisrael. And so the idea is to go through this place of wilderness. What was Eretz Yisrael's land in the name in the Torah? Eretz Canaan. In order to live in Eretz Yisrael, in that place of consciousness, we have to be lahachnia. Eretz Canaan is lahachnia, to surrender, to be able to when we go through that land, that space called wilderness, desert, it's to let go and to be willing to accept Hashem's love and embrace and nurturing and care. What it has, in a sense, Chazal teach us that when we left Mitzrayim and we entered into Eretz Yisrael, what happened? We spoke about this before, right? We came out of Yam Suf, we were going through the birth canal, and we were born. We were babies. And so essentially, while we were wandering through the desert before receiving the Torah, we were nurtured. We were given food, right? Our clothes were didn't have to be taken care of. We were given water. We were given man. We were everything. We were clouds of glory. We were always covered with this warm fuzzy blanket. Everything was taken care of us because essentially we were babies. That's what you do to a baby. And one of the problems which we're going to explore today that would happen with the spies is they didn't want to grow up. They didn't want to grow up. They wanted to be under that tender, loving, intimate care of Mama Dearest. In order to enter Eretz Yisrael, let's look at this beautiful new insight that Hashem has given me the zchut to learn. Let's look at the word emet. What did we always say? You cannot have Emuna without emet. Emet is the male, Emuna is the female. Emet is the Torah. Right? Torah tieh emunati. That's our emet. Emet is the Torah. Emet, if you take the word, the three letters, Aleph, Mem, Taf. First of all, we know that emet is Aleph, first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Mem, middle, Taf, end, which means that it's perfectly aligned with the Aleph Bet. Right? So it has stability. 2, emet. Aleph is Alufo Shel Olam. It's Hashem Yitbarach. Mem is a letter of dependency, from. When it's something from, it means that I'm relying on something. The mem is always going to be connected with something that it's being relied on. So emet means I am relying on Alufo Shel Olam. For what? To take me to the tough. To take me to the end of my road. To take me through life. That's emet. It's a state of consciousness. It's what Torah offers us. Torah offers us emet, meaning that I understand, Hashem, you control the world, I rely on you, and you are going to take me through everything from the beginning of my life until the end, from the beginning of creation until the end. Look at something else beautiful. Emet, Aleph Mem, Em, mother, Mem Taf, Met. Hashem, and believing in the emet means you're my mother. You started me off in this world, and met. You take me till the end of my time in this universe. That is where Emuna is relying on. Again, Emuna is not blind faith. It's believing in that which I know. Maybe that knowing is deep in my subconscious, in my supernal mind, supernatural being, but it's there. It's the truth. It's emet is the truth. I think we need some tissues. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The idea is that Hashem is taking us like a mother, right? All the way down to the end of our life. Hashem is taking us all throughout our life. And then we can get to Emuna. Emuna, the root word of Emuna is Aleph Mem Nun. Look at this beautiful. If I stand strong with my M, with my mother, how far do I need to go to achieve Emuna? One letter. From Mem until Nun is one letter. I only have to make one itsy bitsy step to get to Emuna if I have emet. One step. From Mem until Nun. And that's how I get amen, which is the root word of Emuna. So the idea of what Hashem is telling us is we cannot enter the promised land. We cannot receive Torah unless I totally give myself up to the Mother Hashem, to the Shlina HaKadosha. Unless I do that, I cannot enter into the promised land. What are some of the reasons why I don't want to come into the promised land? What are some of the reasons why I don't enter into Eretz Yisrael? I don't make Aliyah, or I don't enter into that idea of Eretz HaKodesh. By the way, I mentioned this before. What is Admat Kodesh? Admat Kodesh is Eretz Yisrael. That's really the word that's depicted in the Torah. Admat Kodesh. We spoke about this before, but let's talk about this again. One of the main focuses and calling of every Jew is to do what's called Yichudim. The job of the Jew is to constantly connect. We are builders. Am boneh. Today, in today's modern language, you look around, you see it physically. We're constantly rebuilding this country. There's construction sites more than there are inhabited, buildings. There's more dust in my living room than anything else in the world. My house, my broom. I was born with this broom in my. My mother keeps saying, "You were born with a broom in your hand." This is what I gave birth to: a broom in my daughter's hand. I mean, constantly with a broom, because we are am boneh. And whatever you see on the outside is exactly what it is reflecting on the inside. We are am boneh. We are constantly building. We're building our reality. We're building the spiritual reality. How do we build it? Yichudim. Remember this. Everything comes from one source. Remember, no two sources in this world. When we say again, enot milvado means nothing else. There is no bad luck. There is no circumstances. If I would have sent my kid to this school, there is no if I would have married that guy as opposed to that guy. Nothing happened. Everything comes down from one place and one source. And so our job in this world is to connect the dots, as Rabbi Pinchas Winston Shlita says. Connecting the dots, constantly bringing things back to its source. By that I read again, this is a whole Kabbalistic teaching, is redeeming the sparks. I'm elevating everything back up to its source. I'm sweetening the judgments, because the minute I bring that which is difficult for me and I bring it up to its source, the source is light, I'm automatically enlightening it. And then when it comes back down to me, it comes back down in a sweetened form, in a revealed good form. That is our avoda. What is Admat Kodesh? What is Eretz Yisrael? Adama Kodesh in Eretz Yisrael is the prime physical state to be able to connect heaven and earth. Kodesh with Adama, Admat Kodesh. This is the place to be able to do the avoda, the spiritual avoda of the Jew. That's why there's certain things. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu yearned so much to come here, was because he understood this. He understood that there's certain things that you just cannot do. Again, there's certain things that are just not aligned properly that lend itself to be able to fulfill the tafkid of every Jew that we have. So, going back to the original question, so what is it? Why would the spies, let's relate it to the Parsha, why would I not want to enter into this beautiful place called the Promised Land? Why? With so much to offer, with so much avoda, but so much reward, so much fruits to pick to my work, right? We bring up our kids. We wait for the day that we can walk them under the, to the chuppah, because we know how much our kishkas came out, then backwards, forwards, up and down, in order to get to that place. So that it's the joy of to be able to work towards our avoda and see it and reap it. Why wouldn't I want to be in that place of seeing the Promised Land, of being that close, that closely connected to Hashem? One of the reasons which the spies unfortunately felt, where they were very pessimistic. They felt inferior. They felt not worthy of being able to do Hashem's call. They felt unworthy and not strong enough to be able to take the material world and work the ground and still be able to see Hashem. And that sometimes is what happens to us. In every person's life, one time or another, we say to ourselves, you know what? I don't know. I know at least, I won't talk for everyone. I sometimes just say it would be really nice to have a little bit more money than what we have right now. But on the other hand, I don't know how it would affect me. Would I really be able to withstand the nisayon of having the money and still seeing Hashem in it? It's by the way, not an easy nisayon to have money and still be able to serve Hashem in the same way as if you didn't. It's not an easy nisayon. But the bottom line is, we don't trust in ourselves. We don't tap into that godly spark. When we say that we were created, B'Tselem Eloki, it means, we take this for granted. We say this haphazardly without thinking too much about it. I carry a piece of a Kadosh Baruch Hu with me. I can do anything, for the good and for the worse, yes? I can do anything. I just need to tap into that place. I need to see myself in the image of Hashem, and then I can do anything. And that was one of the mistakes of the spies. They saw themselves disconnected, and of course they worked within reason and within logic. And anytime you work within logic, because we are a people of the impossible. I heard a beautiful, beautiful vart by the chief rabbi of England, Rabbi Lord Sachs Shlita. Beautiful, beautiful shiur he gave on faith. I think he's coming out with a new book on faith, if it didn't come out already. And he says, you want to have faith? You want to have Emuna? Let me tell you how you get Emuna. Look at Am Yisrael Chai. Look at Am Yisrael Chai. That couldn't be possible on logic. We're above logic. We're the people of the impossible. We're the impossible nation. We're the nation that people, the army masters come up in front of a school and say, the wars of Israel, we don't even discuss them in our class because that doesn't make sense. That doesn't go by any pattern of strategy and military, No. Above and beyond logic. Doesn't make sense. That's called Emuna Me'al HaSechel. It's Emuna, it's illogical. That's what Emuna is. In order for me to be able to enter in the promised land, I need to come from a place of Kna'an, of total hachna'ah. I have no sechel, I don't understand, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Hashem doesn't say, Lo alecha melacha ligmo. It's not incumbent upon us to finish anything in this world. Just do it. Just to move forward and do it. Like we did when we entered into Yam Suf. Hashem says, don't worry how I can save you, what I can say. Just go. Just walk. That's how you rebirth. That's how you experience the rebirth. That's how you experience a new you. And that's what Emuna does to us. Emuna gives us a new me. You cannot go through that process unless you give up your entire self. There's no way to enter into Eretz Yisrael. No way to make aliyah. Make calculations, but where are my kids going to go to school? But where's going to be my shul? How am I going to be able to afford? No calculations. Again, we daven to Hashem. We connect to Hashem. We understand Hashem is guiding our lives. And with that, we make aliyah. Again, spiritual or physical aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. What is this promised land?
Really?
Yeah, totally. I got it in there. Yeah. What is this promised land? What is the place that I'm so yearning to go towards? It's the place of Geula. We have to know why we're asking for Mashiach, right? We have to know what am I looking for? A few things promised land offers me. That's the glimpse of every single one of us have endured this place at one point or another in our lives. The place called the Promised Land is the place of heightened spiritual sensitivity. It's a place of connection. It's a place where I feel and experience Hashem. What is Emuna? Emuna is not necessarily anything else but just a feeling. Emuna is a feeling. It's a sense of experiencing closeness to Hashem. That's what Emuna is. It's not something that I can describe, I can make sense of, I can explain to someone else. It's a feeling. It's an experience. The Promised Land is an experience. It's a state of expanded consciousness where I experience the divine right in front of me. I feel a connectiveness, right? And again, that comes only after tremendous, tremendous preparation. To take out the Egypt in me, to take out the ego, to take out my desire to connect to this world, and to want to only be one with Hashem. What does that mean? Again, we're going back to the flowing idea. The idea that Eretz Yisrael flows also means that it's a place of giving. Eretz Yisrael, again, in order for me to get away from the Mitzrayim in me, I have to be in a place of giving of my time, giving of myself, giving of my resources, giving of my heart, giving of my soul to someone else. That is also required in order to live in Eretz Yisrael. I need to be in a place where I'm flowing, where I'm able to give to others. But do I see the giants? Do I see the dangers that are in Eretz Yisrael? Do I scout the land and see myself as a grasshopper? And do I get frightened over the whole idea of the giants? Or do I understand that it's all in my mind? Everything is in my mind. Let's talk about this for just a minute. How can I overcome, though, that which I see? I see difficulty. I see hardship. I see that I'd rather put my head in the sand and not have to deal with the difficulty of becoming closer to Hashem, because I know the closer I become with Hashem, the greater the nisyonot. Who knows what He has in store of me? Maybe it's better to be. I had one woman come and ask me just not too long ago, well, maybe, part of me wants to grow but doesn't want to grow, because I know if I grow, then the nisyonot grow and my yetzer hara grows, and I don't know, it's sort of nice to just be a little baby and not know anything, and just Hashem will think I just made mistakes, I didn't really know. But we don't want to be in kindergarten all our lives, right? How many times can I learn red, yellow, pink, and blue? 1, 2, 3. How much? The idea of life is to be challenging. It's to want to grow. And that is what life is all about. And so do I see myself, do I want to stay a grasshopper? Do I want to stay that grasshopper that the spies depicted and said, we're grasshoppers in comparison to the giants of the land? It all depends on how I see things. And I wrote down, they really were giants. Absolutely. Hashem, they put themselves up for the nisayon. They said, we want to scout the land. The minute you go and you want to do something involved in teva, you want to involve yourself with something in logic, Hashem's going to make the nisayon that much more difficult for you to find Him.
Meaning
they went out.
They tampered with Hashem's plan?
No. Hashem, at the end of the day, they ended up going into Eretz Yisrael. It just took them 40 years. Hashem's plan is Hashem's plan. It's going to happen whether we like it or not.
No, but they tried to...
Because of the lack of Emuna, they said, listen, we accept what you're saying, but we want to see what's going on. There are a lot of midrashim that actually talk about this, a lot of things that they actually went because they wanted to do a Kiddush Hashem. There's a lot of explanations on it. But let's just take it for the Pshat. The Pshat is they went in and they said, let's just scout the land. I want to see what we're up for, right? So what does that mean? They wanted to go up logic. They wanted to go by reason. Let's just see what we're up against. Let's see. And so Hashem says, send for yourself the spies, right? That's the way it was described in the Torah. What does it mean? Hashem says, listen, you're not doing this for me. I know I'm getting you into Eretz Yisrael. You need to do it. Go ahead, go with the teva. You're going to go with the teva? Hashem says, well, now I'm going to show you, as they say, abu teva. I'm going to show you the mother of nature, Mother Nature. I'm going to show you that if you really want to go on logic, you're not going to be able to see a way of being able to do it. I'm telling you now, you're not. That's why before we even investigate something based on logic, it's better to just give it up. Just not even investigate.
So that's a very good thing that you just said. So let's say a person, Lorena, is sick. Their first reaction should not be to seek out medicine.
That's for sure.
It should be
on a conscious level. On a conscious level, we should never go first with the hishtadlus of the teva. Always. If we want to reach a high madrega, again, we're talking about high madrega, and all of us women.
It's lessening the nisayon. It's making it
yeah, but again, it's a high madrega to be able to really want to be there. It's not, of course, but you have to be in a high madrega to be able to do that. To say right away, okay, Hashem, I stumped my toe, it's you. It's not an easy madrega. I have to remember the 3 buttons have to be really instilled in me, severe, really rooted in me for me to be able to jump to number 4 and say, what's the message, Hashem? That's not an
And
easy
if you-
thing.
If you end up being able to do that at some point, you actually have a less difficult Nisayon.
For sure, because you right away, you already connected the dots, even without having to go through the maze, you already reached the destination. The whole point of an Nisayon, of a difficulty, is to recognize Hashem, right? If you already got there from the first moment, then Hashem is automatically going to sweeten it up. Because you've done your yichud already. Now, again, there could be more tikkunim involved. There could be that there's a place of suffering, and the person has to still go through that difficult. But they for sure shorten.
Recognizing Hashem is not. We don't know in which way He wants us to do it. I can go through a hard
Right.
time and say, okay, Hashem, I know that this is coming from you, and I can, how can I better serve you, and how can I this and this and that, and I can recognize right away, and it doesn't mean it's taken away from me, because recognizing Hashem can come in many forms.
No. The fact that you recognize Hashem is you're already answering one of the reasons why this whole Nisayon came. The whole idea of any difficulty, I hope I'm going to get to it today, is the whole idea of any challenge is to refine my vessel so that I could receive more light, so I could be more connected to Hashem. That's the whole purpose of every difficulty. Every Nisayon has in it the idea of a nes. Why is it a nes? Why is it a miracle when I go through a Nisayon? Because in essence, I'm going against logic and I'm connecting it right away to Hashem. In other words, I'm not looking at why, I fell because the floor was wet, or because I was wearing the Crocs, or because someone left the box. I go above logic. In a sense, I almost went beyond my nature. And so Hashem says, now for that, I'm going to elevate you in a miraculous way, so that also, again, midah keneged midah, just like you went above your nature. What is a nes? It's above nature. You went above your nature. You put aside logic. You saw me. I'm going to go above nature, and I'm going to elevate you now to become closer to me, where in essence, you weren't worthy of it. But because you withstood the Nisayon, I can now connect you closer to me. So that's a midah keneged midah. So automatically when I go through a difficult, but again, remember the 4 buttons. It's very, very important, because if we don't go through the 4 buttons, we cannot jump right away with what's the message. We have to first of all say, it's all you, Hashem. It has to be very deeply rooted. It's from you, Hashem. You love me. You're my Father. It's all good. And then I can go to it's all from you, Hashem. If I go straight to number 4, I could be involved with a lot of anger. Oh, it's all from you, Hashem, but it hurts. I first have to calm down those emotions before I can go to it's all from you, Hashem. Then I can go and try to analyze the message. So that's Emuna Pshuta, Me'ala Teva. Right? Me'ala Teva. And so the whole idea is to change the eyes, change the vision. Right? I wrote down a beautiful motto. We don't see things the way they are. We perceive things the way that they are. And this brings us back to that quantum physics, right? The quantum mechanics, which is so important. I'm telling you, Google it and learn about it. It changed my whole perspective when you could see it scientifically, proven that it is all dependent on the observer. It's how I see things. If I see myself as a grasshopper and I see everyone else as a giant and my Nisayon as a giant, of course I won't be able to go with it and be able to overcome it. And I'll see my entry into Eretz Yisrael as something like, I'll never be a tzaddik like X, Y, and Z. I'll never. She has kalim, she has this, she has... No, every single one of us has a choice to see things in the way that we choose. If I could switch, again, but it only comes if I empty out myself. If I empty out myself and realize I'm nothing. I'm only what Hashem makes me to be. I'm only as smart as what Hashem pours inside of me. Fill me up, Hashem. I'm empty now. That's who I am. I can be 100% filled with Hashem if I allow myself and I empty myself up. But if I say, no, but I can handle this one on my own, or this doesn't make sense, let me see if I can figure out another way, then I'm full of myself and I can't have Hashem. There's no room. There's literally no room for Hashem to come inside of me. So the avoda is to get out of Mitzrayim, to take the ego out of me, to take the physicality out of me, the logic out of me, and to work on Emuna Me'al Hadat, to go Emuna beyond reason, to be able to say, it doesn't make sense to me, but it could be done. And how did Yoshua and Caleb, how were they able to do this? They were able to withstand the Nisayon. They saw I'm going to say they observed the same things as the other 10 spies, but they saw differently. Why? What did they do beforehand? They prepared. They went to Ma'arat HaMachpelah and they say that Yoshua ben Nun received a change in his name, and Moshe, the Kabbalistic teachings teach us something amazing, that Moshe Rabbeinu actually hitaber betoch Yoshua. A part of Moshe Rabbeinu actually was so to speak reincarnated. A part of his neshama was planted into Yoshua because he saw that Yoshua wanted to see the truth. And when a person wants to see the truth, Hashem gives him, right? Wherever a person wants to go, Hashem helps him. If I want to see something, and I beg Hashem, please help me see the good in this. Help me see the good. You know what the mystical teachers teach us? That the neshama of a tzaddik, there's what's called gilgul, and there's called ibur. There's reincarnation and ibur, which is a semi-reincarnation in this world. I'm teaching you something Kabbalistic. What does it mean? It means that when
the second term?
Ibur, like a ubar, like a fetus. A person in his lifetime could be walking around with 3 different neshamas of tzaddikim inside of him. You know how sometimes you get these kochos, you get this strength, and you think to yourself, how did I exactly go through? How did I go through that nisayon and make it with a smile in my face? And nobody else understands. How is it that that person has so much koach? It's because they had an ibur, a neshama of a tzaddik came in them and helped them through it and then went away. And this literally is the cycle of our lives. We don't do anything alone. But if we give to Hashem the yearning to want to do the right thing. Yoshua wanted to see good. He wanted to be a good shaliach. He wanted to do Ratzon Hashem. So what did Hashem do? He gave Moshe Rabbeinu the ability to put himself, so to speak, inside Yoshua by the change of his name and receive kochos that were kochos of Moshe Rabbeinu. And in that zchut, he was able to come back with a great report. So what does this teach us practically in our lifetime? If we yearn to want to be a tzaddik, if we yearn to want to go above our logic and see Hashem, to live with Emuna, Hashem will give us, God willing, the gift of having Rachel Imeinu. Who wouldn't want Leah Imeinu, Sarah Imeinu, Dvorah Neviah, to have them live literally inside of our neshama and give us kochos to be able to reach that level. And in the zchut of his desire, he had the zchut of having Moshe Rabbeinu accompany him throughout that scouting of the land. And what was the zchut of Caleb ben Yefuneh? His zchut was that he stopped. He said, they say that Caleb ben Yefuneh was a very sort of easygoing kind of guy. He would never argue with you. And so he himself saw that as he was walking and they were getting closer to Eretz Yisrael, he heard the spies, he heard the 10 of them really plotting to make the report not look good. Even before, again, that was their preparation. They already had negativity in them, and that's why they saw negative, which talks about thoughts and how important it is to have positive, optimistic thoughts, because you attract that which you think about, because our thoughts create, right, our reality. It's a whole other shiur. But anyway, so he felt himself being pulled and drawn to the ideas of the spies. He says, you know what? I can't do this by myself. I've got to go and get help. He stopped. He put himself into the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, into the kever, and he davened. He said, Hashem, I have no zchut, but in the zchut of the imot and the avot, the kedoshim, help me. I wanted to. You promised them the land. I know you're going to give us the land. Help me not be convinced by these other, hoodlums, so to speak. Help me not be convinced that it's not possible. And so what we learn from this is an amazing lesson. Number one, yearning to want to see emes, yearning to want to see Hashem in our lives gives us the zchut to attach ourselves to tzaddikim in this world that will help us see with spiritual eyes. Number two is the whole idea of tefillah. The idea of tefillah, constantly asking Hashem in the zchut of our avot and imaot, in the zchut of the tzaddikim that live amongst us and who are no longer with us in this world. Hashem, please, I have no zchut. They build the whole foundation of Am Yisrael. I have no zchuyot. I'm here at the end of the game. I'm the cleanup crew. I'm cleaning up the grounds to prepare it for Mashiach. I'm planting the flowers on the ground that was already set for your beautiful palace. I have no zchuyot, Hashem. But in the zchut of our avot and imaot, they're self-sacrifice. They're giving over themselves to you. Please, Hashem. Please, Hashem. I yearn for it. I want it. We cannot underestimate those words. I want to tell you something I had notes on, and I'm reviewing now all my notes in preparation for the book tour. I read Rav, I think his name is Rav from Kamarno. Kamarno? I knew you would know, right? Kamarno Rav. Zatzal, he says, when a person, listen to this clearly, when a person goes to Hashem and says, listen, Hashem, I don't know what's going on in my life. I have no clue what you have planned for me. This is so painful for me. I am in so much pain. I'm giving it all over to you, my logic, my sechel, my kochos. I'm giving everything to you, Hashem. Just show me, just tell me, where am I supposed to go? You know what the Rav says? It's like a person fasted. Listen to this. 300 years. That sentence, the giving over of my entire being, is like a person fasted 300 years. Can you imagine the spiritual ecstasy a person reaches when he gives over his sechel to Hashem for the sake of reaching the promised land? And this is what Hashem wants from us. He wants only to give us good, but we cannot get the good unless we give it over to Hashem. Unless we give it over, unless we think good, and we will see good. Understand that what we see is not, it's an illusion, right? That's the spies saw an illusion. They used their logic and their strategies, and they put all that inside of the idea of conquering the promised land. Of course you're not going to be able to do it. Based on logic, how do you pay your bills in Eretz Yisrael? How do you afford to put gas in a car at $8.50 a gallon? Tell that to an American. The gas is going up to $8.50 a gallon. No, here in Eretz Yisrael, that's what we pay. Now that's what we're paying here? They cry when it gets to $3 a gallon. No, I'm just kidding. I gave an example. Sorry, no. Did it? I know, of course it's still high. Right. But explain to a person who lives out of Israel that we have a car and actually pay $6, $7, $8 a gallon. How do you exactly do that? Where does the money come? It doesn't make sense, because in Israel nothing makes sense. You're attached. Let's just talk about this, and with that I'll probably have to end. Let's talk about the whole idea of what is Eretz Yisrael? What is Beit? The Kohen Gadol would go once a year into Kodesh Kodeshim, into the Holy of Holies, and would beseech Rachamei Shamayim for Klal Yisrael. And in that zchut, if he did his avodah properly, and God willing, he did, right? He would bring down Shefa for the entire year for everyone in the world. In other words, no one would get sick that year. No car accidents. No nisyonot. No difficulties. No nothing. No children off the derech that year. Nothing. Everything perfect that entire year. The Shefa, the abundance that came down, that comes down from Kodesh HaKodeshim. This is in preparation for the 3 weeks, so we know what we're mourning. So we understand what's missing in our lives. The ability to do korbanot, to be able to be so close with Hashem, to be able to give over an animal, and in the zchut of that, to be able to achieve closest to Hashem, that brought them close to the level of Adam HaRishon before the Chet. Without that was the avodah, to bring the korban. Look what Hashem gave to us. Look what Hashem awarded us. And so Eretz Yisrael is the place of total alignment. To be able to be aligned with Hashem perfectly, which again is one of the reasons why there are so many opposing forces, because this land doesn't allow us to live b'sheker. It opposes the whole makeup of this land. And so a person who's not willing to really seek spirituality and truth is going to have serious opposition here. But if I go with the flow and I see it as being a land that's only flowing honey and only flowing milk, flowing everything of sweetness, all the bracha, understanding that if I go with the flow, then I will be able to really taste the sweetness. I will be able to be nurtured by mommy's milk. That is what happens if we live here, Bezrat Hashem, in full alignment with Hashem.
How much should we have finished?
No, I did. I finished that thought I finished.
Baruch Hashem, I had this movie 10 years ago. It was just a very strong desire when 9/11 happened, but there was no spiritual connection tremendously. It just felt right. I couldn't explain it. And it ended up taking me on a journey of, I relate so much to what you're saying, a journey of Emes and Emuna.
Right.
But for me, my journey came, I'm not going to say unfortunately, but it came to a tremendous test. Tremendous. And I got to this point, which you do look back, despite the test, I'm so grateful in a crazy way. I'm so grateful for who I've become and everything. I'm grateful to Hashem. But how can, like, I'm listening to you saying all this, and I'm like, how do people just practically put it? Like, I find a lot of people have put off where I am, where I'm holding, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear about Hashem. And how can people get to this place without the test? More from just a real understanding.
Right. How do you get to that?
The tests are irrelevant.
Right, of
Because
course.
what you consider a test might be normal for someone else.
Right.
No,
And their
these were big
tests-
These were big tests.
and their
very, very
tests-
painful, big
Right.
tests.
It's okay. Let's just nothing. It says Yagata umatzata, lo yagata lo matzata. It's a very famous verse. Means you worked hard, you'll find. You found and you didn't work, you really didn't find anything. Everything in life comes with hard work. It's beautiful to receive gifts, but there's such great pleasure knowing that we worked, we went through difficulty, and now the fruits. Again, two mothers taking their child down the aisle. One mother who went through, so to speak, hell and back to see that kid where he is right now. What social workers, what schools, how much money, how much time, how many hours of Tehillim. And then the other mother, thank God, I just knew this was going to happen. He was just such a great child all along. Again, everyone has pleasure, but how can you compare the two? Anytime that we see, every time we go through nisyona, we go through difficulty, and we invest so much of our kishkas to make it through, we see ourselves in the difficulty, and that's why we attach ourselves and realize its value, because we see what came from it, because we invested ourselves in it. That's why we love our children so much, is because we invest so much of ourselves in it. That's why they say you want to grow to love your husband more, your children more, your neighbor more. Give them. Give them. By giving them, you start to love that piece of you that's in them. I mean, again, a person has to also be willing to receive. So there is, a recipient aspect to that too. But the idea is that the more we work towards something and the more difficult. Again, I give you another example. Two guys, you've got Trump and you've got, someone else who was born in the Harlem streets and became a millionaire. I mean, the value of the two, you can't compare. I was born into riches and I made more of it. But this one took himself from the slumps and look what he made himself out of. How can you compare how this one goes to bed at night and this one goes to bed at night? Unfortunately, fortunately, there's always a price to pay for having to reach that spiritual elevation. It's the refinement of our character, the building of our character that makes life worth living.
Right.
And how much we don't ask for it, but sure, there's a pleasure in that that no words can describe. And when you know that you've done it in the most truthful way by attaching yourself to the emes, to Hashem, I call it spiritual ecstasy. It's mamish, like there's nothing to express. There's nothing to define. You can't describe
Isn't it also
it.
that before Mashiach that all the tests are much stronger anyway? I mean, like the
That's-
tests that people have today
Yeah, it's incredible.
are so much greater than
It's rampant too.
the
Right.
tests, the things that you hear that everyone has. When you think of growing, okay, we were younger and things didn't affect you the same way, but there's no comparison between sickness in families, addictions,
Right.
off the derech, financial, things that are, it's so rampant.
Right.
But it says that clearly.
Absolutely, and that's the chesed that Hashem did. Hashem said, "Emet ta'adel min haaretz." The truth is going to be hidden. It's one of the big signs of Yemot Mashiach. emet, my Torah, me, everything that's connected to me is going to be hidden. That's, I think, that packs up all the nisayon all in one. It's one thing to have to go through difficulty, but to not necessarily connect it to why and who's doing it makes it that much more difficult. It takes a tremendous amount of avoda. But, as Leah and I were talking on the way in, but chas v'shalom, let's understand this again, what we're about to enter into a total spiritual reality. Does anybody sit at night any time to think about this? I do. The spiritual reality of Mashiach, where there's going to be no more materialism to satisfy our needs. Nothing. No makolet, no milk. We're going to have to be nourished solely from Hashem. That transition is not going to be easy for all of us. All of us. Hashem has to prepare us. This is Emuna boot camp. We are not having to write down the chov, right? But the idea is that transition is tremendous. And Hashem is preparing every single one of us in our own four walls of our home. If I can see Hashem now in my own personal galut, then I will be able to, God willing, more easily be able to see Him when all logic is lost totally and it appears like we have lost. Say this again, it's going to appear at one point or another that we've lost Hashem, that we've lost the war, that the Holocaust is going to happen, God forbid, again. It's going to appear that way again. And we need to, at that point, go beyond the logic, because we've been there. In our own personal way, we were all there. Every single one of us with our own nisyonot, where we were stuck in a galus in our own home and appeared like Hashem wasn't there for us and Hashem was punishing us. And then we're going to have to see it on a national level, and we're going to have to go back to that place of saying, but wait a minute, Hashem has an amazing track record. He actually did come through for me all along. All throughout my difficulties, He gave me the strength to endure it. I know He's going to do it for me now. I'm not looking at what I'm seeing. I'm not going to look at the giants in front of me. I'm not a grasshopper. I could be anything that I want to be as long as I'm attached to Hashem. And that's the nisayon of where we're in right now. We're preparing ourselves for something really, really big that has never happened in our lifetime. And if you take it in that perspective and you understand that we're about to again enter the promised land, then everything becomes properly in its proportion, and we're going to be able to, Bezrat Hashem, endure the difficulties. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
So, and obviously we all have terrible needs and love in this generation. But it must be that it's going to give us the catering to deal with the war. But is there something more? If God forbid, it shouldn't happen. If there's really a war, like they're talking about this carpet missile attack, and the Iron Dome will not be able to.
Forget that. What about the atomic bomb?
When we're sitting in the Mamad. Okay, well we didn't say but.
Enod milvado. Just remember the mantra. Enod milvado. The Chafetz Chaim, the Nefesh Chaim, the Nefesh Chaim. The Nefesh Chaim writes those three words. Don't estimate the power. Spread it on every single one of your messages and every single one of your emails and on your Facebook pages. Enod milvado. Remember to repeat those three words. That takes us out of this reality. Enod milvado. We understand there's no one else but Hashem. It's only you, Hashem. You're with me in the mamad. Right? We are not alone in that mamad. We're not alone when the missiles fall. When I'm just going to end by this. The pasuk of Tehillim, read this pasuk every single day. Yipol mitzitcha elef uvava miminecha elecha lo yigash. 1,000 will fall around you. To you, I will not bring harm. That pasuk is for Gog and Magog. Enod milvado, but also to remember that Yipol mitzitcha elef. I don't remember which one. Yipol mitzitcha elef. I have to get it. Is it? Okay. Yipol mitzitcha elef. Thousands will fall around you. Elecha lo yigash. You're going to stand there, go like this. Wow, look what's going on around here. Oh boy, lots of damaged buildings. Wow, they're really going to be building. That's the meaning. We have to have Emuna in Hashem. That's David HaMelech. The Yetzer Hara couldn't take him until chas v'shalom, he had to fall, and then he broke his connection. That was the only time the Yetzer Hara was able to get him, the Satan was able to get him. Stay with the momentum of Hashem, Hashem, Hashem. And now, start getting into it now. Now teach the children, now. Hashem loves you. Hashem loves us. You know Hashem loves us? Just out of nowhere, I go to my kids. You know how much Hashem loves you? You know Hashem made you so beautiful? I look at my daughter. She does her hair. So you know how beautiful Hashem made you? Everything Hashem. Bring Hashem into everything in your lives. Nothing, not a moment should pass by without the words HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Borei Olam, Hashem, Melech HaOlam. Every moment of the day, get used to it. That is going to be the reality. And if we don't get used to it now, the transition is that much more harder. Hazat Hashem. We should all enter the promised land. I'm ready to dance with all of you in Besamigdash.
I mean, I know I have heard about the missiles, but are they saying...
Oh yeah, this is it.